Hello and welcome to another episode of Geography Made Easy. In these videos, we try to make difficult geographical concepts easy. And today my topic will be weathering. And today we will be discussing the different mechanisms of weathering. This is the first part of the lecture series, so I hope you will be wanting to hear for more on weathering. So, what is the meaning of the word weathering? The term weathering comes from the word weather, and in this case, weather is the weather elements which help in the breakdown of the rock. So, if we are talking about weather elements, here we refer to those elements which are abundantly or naturally seen, such as sunlight, such as rain, hail, snow, or any other naturally occurring climatic element that can be termed or classified as weather. Weather is the change of the day-to-day atmospheric conditions. So anything that we refer to when we are referring to the daily changes of the atmospheric condition in an area is falling under weathering. Now weather elements, they constantly, if they are affecting a particular landscape or land surfaces, we see that the material can get broken down. In this case, the rocks get broken down, and these disintegrated rock materials are seen to be found in situ. In situ means inside or where it has degenerated. It is found in the place where the degeneration has taken place. Until and unless we do not see the weathering elements found in the area from where they have degenerated, we cannot call it weathering. Whenever they are transported from one place to the other, then we will be calling it erosion. So here we will be only referring to that process which is happening to break down the rocks, and the rocks will be seen in a particular place. Now, weathering is of three types: mechanical, chemical, and biological. In this video, we will be concentrating only on mechanical type of weathering. Let us start. The first type of weathering, which is commonly seen in the very cold areas, is the frost wedging or the freeze-thaw weathering. Now, what is the meaning of wedge? A wedge is a elongated kind of any shaped wood or any shaped uh, element. It can be metal or anything which is having a elongated shape. We see wedge tools in the prehistoric times. We see wedge when a wedge is used to drive down something inside another element, inside the wood. Sometimes pegs or wedges are pushed in. Now, when this kind of wedges of frost or ice they form, they can cause weathering. We will see how. In cold areas, we can have a rock surface. A rock surface usually has invisible cracks and joints within it. These cracks and these joints are formed when the rock has cooled down. So they are naturally forming zones or lines of weakness. Now we have to understand that these lines of weakness are acting as those areas through which weathering will take place, or the weather elements will be able to attack. Now frost wedging will take place where we see that alternate hot and cold weather will exist. Either the temperatures will increase and decrease during the day and the night, or through seasons. So we see that the freeze thaw, thawing means melting, the freezing of water and the thawing of water has to take place. So say there is rainfall in the form of rain or water which enters these cracks and joints, and what happens is during the daytime or during the summer season, and what happens is that this water it freezes during the night time or during the winter season. Now when it freezes, what happens is the water, we know that volume of water increases when it becomes from liquid to solid. So we see a change in the volume of water when it is freezing. So what happens is that the liquid water is now a frozen water, and this water is exerting pressure on the surrounding rocks. So this alternate, again in the summer or in the daytime the water is melting, so there is thaw. The cracks have increased in size. Again at night, so more water enters the rock. Again at night there is freezing, or during the winter there is freezing. So this alternate freeze and thaw, what will happen is the cracks will slowly increase, and we will see that the rock will slowly disintegrate. So we have to remember, in case of freeze thaw weathering, that they take place in cold climates. So we either see them in colder climates in higher altitude areas or higher latitude areas. Sometimes we can also see them where the temperature can be very hot and very cold, so in deserts also. But in this case the precipitation has to be sufficient so that the water remains, which we can see in the cold deserts but we might not see them in the hot deserts. So mostly frost wedging is limited in the very cold areas. Another important point is the rock here will expand and contract with the water. So volume of change in water will affect the rock, and hence we will see that the rock will slowly disintegrate. This is how a rock will look like where frost wedging has taken place. So we see that along this area, we are seeing that along these cracks and joints, we can see that the rock is slowly disintegrating, and with time this entire rock is going to fall apart. Another very important point to be noted when we are talking about mechanical weathering is that mechanical weathering does not allow any kind of chemical change in the rock. We will see a physical change in the rock, that is the whole rock will disintegrate into smaller rock pieces, but the smaller rock pieces and the bigger rock will not have any difference in the chemistry of the rock. So this is something which we have to understand. This is just a physical breakdown of the rocks that is taking place. Next, we move on to insolation weathering. Insolation is the word which is used for incoming solar radiation. Which in simpler terms means sunlight. So sunlight, when it is falling on a rock surface, so this is a rock, and we know in the rocks there are cracks and joints which are normally occurring. So what happens is when the sun is shining on this rock, the outer surface of the rock is becoming hot and it is expanding. So if I have to look at this rock again, so there is expansion of the rock during the day or during the summer season. At night we will see that the rock will cool and it will contract. So alternate heating and cooling of the rocks finally, what happens is when this alternate heating and cooling of the rocks takes place, these cracks and joints they become more and more prominent, and with time they develop more intensely, and finally they lead to the disintegration of the rock. Now we will be looking at the different types of insolation weathering and the different kinds of landforms they form. So this is the byproduct of insolation weathering. Usually it is seen in hot areas, so desert where the sun is shining, where the sunshine is very intense, and over a long period of time the rock is exposed to sunlight. So mostly near the tropical areas we see insolation weathering taking place. So we have seen that in this case the rock has just split into two because of this insolation weathering. The joint which was there, it developed into a proper crack, and finally the rocks are falling apart. We see this kind of insolation weathering is also taking place in the oceans near, so a rock over the oceans, a hard rock is falling apart because of insolation weathering. This is another example from the place we had gone in Andhra Pradesh for our field work, and we can see that here again insolation weathering has taken place. Next, let us move on to two types of insolation weathering. We have the block disintegration and the granular disintegration. So if a massive rock, it has joints and cracks in the form of blocks or vertical and horizontal cracks which look or mimic a piece of a block of bricks, and what we will see that the contraction and the constant expansion and contraction of the rock will lead to cracks developing along the different uh, different along the different joints, and we will see that the rock will disintegrate in the form of blocks. So this kind of disintegration, insolation weathering, is called block disintegration. And sometimes we see that in rocks there are different kinds of minerals. We have darker colored minerals and we have lighter colored minerals. So in this case we have the darker color minerals, and this is the lighter color minerals. So what happens is in this case we see that dark objects they absorb more absorb more heat and they expand compared to the surrounding lighter matrix of the rock. So the darker colored minerals will absorb more heat and expand more compared to the surrounding lighter color minerals. So this constant expansion and contraction within the rock, which is uneven, what happens is it leads to the complete disintegration of the rock. When this happens, so along the grains we can see that the rock is disintegrating. This is called granular disintegration. So this is an example of how it looks when we have block disintegration. We can see that the rocks here are breaking up in the form of blocks, and in this case we can see granular disintegration is taking place. We can see that this rock has small particles, darker particles and lighter particles, and the entire rock is disintegrating as a powdery substance with small the grains coming out. So this is an example of the granular disintegration. Next, we move into another kind of insulation weathering, which is known as exfoliation or sheeting or onion peeling. Now, exfoliation is a very common word which we use in many beauty products. We exfoliate our skin. Similarly, the rock surface also can get exfoliated. Exfoliation means removal of the surface layer. So, what happens is sometimes we have rocks, and in these rocks we have parallel joints and we have vertical joints. So the sun's rays are falling on this rock and it is becoming very hot, and the outer layer is expanding. So outer layer is expanding, again it is contracting. So these joints, they are becoming more and more prominent. So when they are becoming more and more prominent, these cracks are developing properly. We see that along these cracks, the sheet of the rock from the surface is slowly getting removed. This is called also sheeting or onion peeling. So just like in an onion, we can take out the layers of the rock one by one. We can peel off the layers. So similarly, we can also exfoliate the rock. So this is the diagram where we can see that exfoliation is taking place, where the layers of the rocks are slowly getting removed and the surface or the core of the rock is getting exposed. So these are photos of exfoliation. So this is an exfoliation dome. This is again in Andhra Pradesh, and this is the flank of an exfoliation dome, and we can see that the sheeting is taking place. As you can see that these are the layers along which the rock is getting exposed. So this particular layer what covered the entire area once, but this part here has got completely eroded away, and now only the rind is left. Now this portion we have another rind. So layer by layer the rock surface is getting exposed. So this is a phenomena. This is known as sheeting. So by sheets it is getting exposed. So this is all about mechanical weathering. I might have missed out a few features, but if I have to sum up, these are the most commonly seen weathering process, mechanical weathering process. So if you have any doubts or if you have any questions regarding mechanical weathering, please feel free to leave a comment in the chat section. If you like the video, please share it with your friends and do not forget to subscribe. This video is useful for most of the people who are studying basic geography, especially undergraduate level and further on. Also, it is helpful for the competitive exams. So stay tuned for part 2, where we will be discussing the other types of weathering. Thank you.